To start this and give it practicality, we have to go back to a basic concept that some people still are not sure about. I state that women had to have been created before men or formed before man, because you cannot get a man from a man. You cannot get a woman from a man, but you can get a man from a woman, and you can get a woman from a woman, and think about that. Any problem with that statement, that compound complex sentence? I don't have one. This is what the old church, the Church of England, and under King Constantine and the Bishop Eusebius, the Church of Rome, had to get rid of and had to change. The last honesty amongst Caucasian principalities dealing with Christianity, and especially Catholicism, came with the onset of the Greeks, who broke away into the Greek Orthodox Church because they got tired of the lies that were being formed and wanted to continue with some semblance of truth from the Greek society. The last time when the Caucasians told truth. The male cannot reproduce himself. The female can. What does that mean if carried to the furthest extent? It means that if the woman also could decide whether she was going to produce a male or a female, the race of man could cease to exist, as we now understand it, as a double gender. That, at one time on earth, was a tremendous problem. The universal cosmic egg theorem is that a cosmic egg was created, and from that generated everything, and that in the egg still is the semblance of first creation. Things start from an egg, whether it be a hard shell finish or a little ovum attached to the uterine wall. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Let's get a little guess on that. I want to have a little fun here again. How many say that the chicken came first? May I see your hands? If you say the chicken hand first, just raise your hand. Only 3, 4 people. How many say that the egg came first? 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, well, about 6 people. How many aren't going to get on a limb and commit either way? You're just going to listen to the lecture. Okay. Well, in 1975, they connected a vibrational detecting device to an unfertilized egg, and they got a rhythmic pulsing beat just like that of a human heart or pulse. What is generally an unfertilized egg? Might you kind of share with me quickly from the audience? What's the difference between an unfertilized egg and a fertilized egg? Chicken didn't mate, no males around. Yet they have detected, and that experiment has been tried and tried again, some kind of rhythm or pulse within that egg itself. They also found in vertebrates, those that have a central vertebral column again, a spine if you would, that on the phases and oscillations of the moon, that pulse varied, but was always even more intense. We understand that humans are the dominant species on this planet Earth. We are the masters, we are the greatest, and everything else is beneath us, right? Right, yeah, right. The acorn, which has a seed, a phylum of vegetable and plant, contains everything in it that the seed needs to become a mighty oak, including a print on its plum showing what it's going to look out when it matures, what it's going to look like. Isn't that interesting? Ever cut an acorn apart and looked at it? I mean, some of these mutated acorns now that have been gassed and pre-picked, you can't tell anything from. But get the real seed of an pure born acorn, and what do you have when you cut it in half? Picture of a tree. I mean, that's somebody really blueprinted that one. They already said, this is what you're going to look like when you grow up. And that's just on a little acorn. Okay? Let's go to another phylum, an animated phylum, the silk moth. The silk moth reproduces and never mates. Reproduces without a mate. The lowly aphid reproduces without a mate. And as the ancient Egyptians tried to point out, the scarabus beetle reproduces without a mate and can shed its skin and goes along every 7 years quite well. It dies when it does mate. And if you remember, on the Ankh and the scarabus, you found in your Valley of the Kings, and you found again amongst the pyramid and on the Sphinx itself, that sacred symbol of the scarabus. They were trying to convey something. Most of us have forgotten or never knew what they were trying to convey. Dr. Edward Bischoff, MD, started this modern theory of epigenesis in 1854. I want you to jot down that date because people think this has been going along for a long time. It has not. That's close to the turn of the century. Dr. Edward Bischoff started the theory and the story of epigenesis in 1854. That is, that the zygote and the uterine development by union of sperm and egg was the way that humans get started. The first trimester after fetal conception. Before Bischoff's theory became accepted, and understand, it was presented on a paper as a theory, not an accepted fact. Later on, males and those who study under males have made it a fact that this is the way pregnancy starts. For centuries, people before that had believed in a theory of parthenogenesis. I repeat, parthenogenesis, and it even created under Grecian society, which had adopted and stole from the ancient Nubian society, the Parthenon. The idea for the Parthenon was not Greek. The idea that a temple toward bringing in gods was already being utilized on earth, and parthenogenesis, or virgin birth, was acceptable and was the more immaculate, wonderful way. All of your ancient gods, so-called, or avatars or presentors, were said to have been of what? Virgin birth. Now we laugh at that. We lose so much in the vaginal uterine tract conceptory and bringing to term trimesters that there must be a better way. We have just forgotten that there was another way. In the year 1955, 4 prominent British doctors of medicine, and I like to use this amongst college students because when you say British doctors of medicine, then it makes it okay. Dr. Stanley Balfour Lynn, Dr. Bernard Camber, Dr. David Wine Williams, and Dr. A.E. Morant all studied some 10 classical cases of virgin births and agreed that all 10 of them were real, that in some way parthenogenesis, bringing to birth without the union of sperm and egg, had occurred in all 10 of those cases, barring nothing. The most famous or classical case of virgin birth was by Mrs. Emma Marie Jones, a German woman who during the height of the war, World War II, 1944, had been locked in her castle, a big estate, because it had been bombed, and everybody thought that everybody inside had been killed. And so for 17 months she stayed in there. She was not pregnant when she went in. When she came out, she was 9 months pregnant. There had been no men in there. There is another theory, the Arvist theory. The Arvist theory, pronounced Arvist, again was named after the Roman poet and writer, again of love-making and metaphors and so, Publius Ovidius Naso. By the way, I use him because he was a black man. Don't misunderstand. You cannot go to a so-called race of people and state whether or not, if they came from a certain country, they were black or white. All Romans were not white. In fact, most Italians now are mixed bloods. This theory was proven by Imhotep. This theory was revitalized by Pythagoras, again about 2500 BC. It was scientifically demonstrated again by the American biologist, Professor Jacques Loeb, Stanford, in the 40s, and utilizing artificial parthenogenesis in biological labs, this doctor once again proved the old Arvist theory was true, that the embryo develops from the egg alone and does not necessarily require spermatozoon, and that is the correct way. Here is the key. Hear it carefully. I usually speak pretty slowly when I'm giving lectures that are emphatic. Please hear what I'm saying and not what I didn't say. Varied forms of energy, in the forms of radiation from any source, and including radiation from both the sun and the moon or other heavenly bodies, can produce hormonal, chemical energies that will induce in the female zygote, when prime, development of a female cell that will initially divide itself and proliferate through terms. And any developing fetus therein will reach term, no matter what that term is. In other words, vibrations and radiation can start mitosis, division of the egg cell. That's the only reason that the sperm can also do that. It is not the sperm penetrating the egg that does it, releasing its DNA, Y chromosomes. It is the vibration of that sperm, because as you realize and you've read, literally millions to billions of sperm cells die out and never make the grail. What they do is to simply die out because their mobility, their energy level, their vibrational rate is not strong enough to excite the ovum or the egg. The one that does make it, after that, everything is over. Look how many it takes to do one act. Consequently, it is understood that it is the vibrational rate, the amount of energy or radiation that causes that, and the sperm cell is only one possible conductor of such energy. When we start thinking and talking like that, we have to begin to say, well, if that is the case, what is the reason now why many women do not get pregnant until they have a man, if you're talking about something that is so preponderous and so wonderful, Dr. Blair? I state you have to begin to go back into one of the true histories of our planet, and this is where you begin to run into the problems, the challenges, and I love the challenge. At the beginning of this phase, let me explain that hermaphrodites are dual-sexed. Anybody who's hermaphroditic or hermaphrodite has both sexes. Androgynous means a male and a female part on the same plant. So what would happen under androgynous takings in the plant kingdom happens in the hermaphroditic undertakings in the animal kingdom, and that has been referred to as parthenogenesis. Are you still with me? All right. On this planet, which I have heard estimates may be 30 billion years old, 30 billion years old, many, many, many things have happened that we will probably never remember until we are more than man. But the story runs that at one time when the planet had gone through its gaseous stages and changed from a mental plane to a physical apparition, that woman was the first thing to be created. The original people of Earth were etheric or ethereal. They had no physical bodies, for Earth was then not a physical planet. The people dwelled in the kingdom of what we would now call the ether. They were called Etherians. And Etherians, not having physical bodies, had no need for physical sex. Their production and reproduction had nothing to do with coitus or physical embrace. It was done on the plane of mind and manipulation of the substance behind matter, the same thing that still governs matter, the brain cells of a cell. As the atomic structure of our planet condensed due to what is called perturbations of the sun, as the molecules began to fuse together and elements were formed, Earth took on density, and therefore the creatures and intelligent life on Earth also began to become dense. What was once etheric, evanescent, ethereal forms took on more regularity, solidarity, and began to be composed of elements. And they were still dual-sexed. The elements did not form sexual organs, they simply formed a mass or matrix by which the thought forms could then interrelate and become egoic. In other words, the thing that was intelligent began to take on mass by pulling the elements of the planet around it, but it still had no sex. Intelligence, yes. Sexual apparatus, no. It's interesting that the word androgynous means having male and female parts on the same plant cluster, but androgen has been named by men as being a substance that induces or strengthens masculine characteristics, such as a male sex hormone. That is really hypocritical. Okay, hypocritical, if you would. When this species, in its advanced state, during the ancient Earth times, began to form matter more and more, they were pulled toward mating, but they didn't understand what to mate with. And they really didn't care because they were not used to physical bodies. And in many cases, they mated with animals. Their animal stimulation caused the animal to go through term, and the animals were not barren, as you hear say about. The animals produced their babies. And thus animal man was born. The animal portion of their union followed the animal menses, which is covered by the moon. And therefore, like all vertebrae under the moon cycle, they're governed by the 28 or 27 and a half day actually cycle of the moon, and the menses started. The menses is a reference to the physical animal body that is now part of your godlike body that you used to have. It was said that the Jehovah governed all planets with moons and would take under their wing and tutelage all creatures now born and barren under a moon cycle. As the lower vibratory creatures are created to follow a moon cycle, and higher vibratory creatures are built to follow a planetary cycle, there is supposed to be a distinct difference in what they go through and how they are governed. High alkaline diets enzymes, fresh juices, plenty of chlorophyll, oxygen-containing foods, along with deep breathing and exercises, shortens the menstrual cycle. Did you hear what I just stated to you? High alkaline diets, freshly squeezed and freshly run fruit and vegetable juices containing enzymes and life force. Heavy chlorophyll containing products. Chlorophyll allows you to do as the plants do to some extent, become photosynthetic. You can change light into usable energy and energy into usable light. High chlorophyll containing diets, plenty of exercise, plenty of deep breathing reduces the menstrual cycle. A lack of the exercise, a lack of life-giving foods and meat diets produces the menstrual cycle and reverts you back to the lower vibration of the animal for the human that you are, the animal person. Most athletic women find a wonderful, horrible thing that happens to them. Boy, Blair, you can't get your stuff straight. Wonderful, horrible. What a way to put adjectives together. The wonderful thing is that they find that they don't suffer through the monthly menses, and they may even skip months and even have at the most a 30-hour menses. The horrible thing is they think they're pregnant or worse. That's a wonderful, horrible sensation. Women then, of course, as they have before, then go to the doctors to get straight. And they do. The poor, ignorant mother, please mothers, don't get angry with me, let me finish, not knowing any better, suffers greatly with her daughter. The poor, ignorant father, not knowing any more than the mother or daughter, suffers equally and says, yes, something must be wrong, and they all run to the great white coats in the sky for direction and and help. Please bring it on. Please, my daughter has not suffered, gone through a menses yet as I have. Make her go through it so I can be proud of her and know that she is healthy. And the guy said, yeah, that's right. They know what they're talking about. And neither of them do. And in many cases, neither does the medical doctor under the oath of Hippocrates that they suffer through too. So ignorance leads ignorance, and the blind lead the blind, and they induce the menses by ways that would turn your stomach. Or maybe you've heard of some of the ways that the present medical allopathic practitioners induce the menses in young girls who have not had a cycle, because they know if they have not had a cycle, that girl is sick, and they want to make her well. By barbaric methodologies, do you want me to spell it out, or can you imagine? Those prone lie-down tables which women help themselves strap into have induced more trauma that some women never get over, but usually on a 6-month basis they go for more. Not only sulfur and drugs that are caustic to epidermal tissue are administered internally to a woman, but solutions and devices are inserted that can even tear up the wound in the best practitioner who has loving tenderness on his or her mind. Some women never recover from that, and yes, it will bring on some kind of hemorrhaging, I guarantee you. The old ways, the folk ways, the dumb ways, using herbals to do anything you wanted to and magnets to do anything you wanted to, would be too simple, too simplistic for the modern practitioners of medicine, so they make it a dual thing. You have to usually come back twice a month for 6 months, and they get rich off of your suffering, and then you experience the final crustacean, the final wonderful thing. You have a menses. Isn't that wonderful? That's because in ignorance woman thinks that that is the only way she can be healthy and the absence of which means ill health or pregnancy. Oh, how we have suffered through ignorance. Original female, when she wanted to bring forth birth, simply agitated the elements under her direction, under her matrix, and began to form self. First of all, as living beings, and this is the ancient legend when people were not born through eggs, and then later on, as she majored again with animals, had to go through the animal methodology of producing through living birth and through, again, excretion and term. All original zygotes are female when formed. I repeat, all original zygotes are female when formed. They later change. Usually after 6 to 8 weeks, the male fetus starts to secrete testosterone, otherwise it would remain a female. All males start off life as a female in the womb, presently in this moon cycle. Hear this now, it's going to start getting worse with each sentence. Bear with me. Sometimes a small quantity of testosterone is secreted, just enough to make testes form on the developing embryo, but not enough to utilize proper brain chemistry and pituitary gland balance, and indigenous homosexuality is produced. What did he say? What did he say? You don't want me to repeat that? I know you don't want to hear that again. Yeah, you do. I knew it. Just gluttons for punishment, aren't you? Just like going to the MDs, some of them. Sometimes a small quantity of testosterone is secreted just enough to make testes form on the developing embryo, but not enough to utilize proper brain chemistry and pituitary gland balance, and indigenous homosexuality is produced. Gets worse. Birthmarks are the mental impregnation and decreased ability of woman to still mark and control the fleshly vibratory cell states within her body. In other words, if you are frightened by something, usually in your second or third trimester, if you crave something, usually in the last of your first, second, and third trimester, if you are any way involved with something that stays on your mind, you mark your child or fetus with that thought. Now, before you laugh at that, how many of you have craved the strawberries, which shows a lack of calcium and phosphorus and a need for iodine, and then you have a strawberry patch on the baby, usually on the left side of the boy, the right side of the girl. The boy is usually carried higher, and the girl is usually carried lower, and so on and so forth again. Just reverse that, because the boy's head is bigger, usually lower for the boy, higher for the girl. And the child is usually marked left or right, depending on its sex, with your thought. You're scared by a mouse, or you're frightened, or you think about if a mouse ever ran across, I'd probably faint. Here's a little mouse marked on your child there. It begins to break up as the cells expand, but you can see it distinctly at birth. Or you have these cravings. That shows at one time you could mentally control fleshly cells, especially within your matrix and sphere, and now you don't know how to any longer, so it kicks in, but you don't control it. That is mind, the power, now at its most deficient. At one time it was at its most proficient. Dermoid cysts are the undeveloped cells starting the first trimester of fetal development, and microscopic examination will verify that fact. You are budding outside of the womb. Most cysts are mutating cells that do not follow a pattern. Dermoid cyst is a birth in the cavity, what they call the oophoreum, that does not have a womb, and usually results in a huge cyst that must be removed. Teeth, hair, and cell structure can be readily seen on a dermoid cyst. Fibroid tumors are the results of the vibrations budding along the reproductive organs and tract, but not being able to start the mitosis, and so they just act as little buds throughout the reproductive area, especially when meat is present in great degrees in that female system. You didn't hear either of those things either, did you? No, I know you didn't. Well, then buy the tape. The word conception means to conceive mentally. Look it up. The word conception, first IBID definition, means to conceive mentally, not to conceive in the womb. Take a deep breath. Now we get to the real rough stuff. You thought this was rough? This was nothing. Now it gets rough. Man descended from woman. Circumcision is the artificial means to finalize that separation, and when the race of man was having a hard time making it here, especially certain kinds of man, human man, the foreskin tried to cover the penis just as it is cloaked in the clitoris, and consequently the male had to actually cut off this foreskin as he tried to become what he once was, a woman. The male testes is a woman's descended ovum now encased within the scrotum. The male penis is an elongated clitoris. The female fallopian tubes, named by Fallopius again in 1523, is nothing more than the male vas deferens or urethra duct, which is both of the fallopian tubes joined together, an amalgamation of the fallopian ducts. The male prostate, which males usually by the time of 12 to 40 have problems with, and usually don't even function well after 40, the reason why is now going to be explained to you. It is nothing more than an atrophied womb. And every man has the vestibular mammary glands that go along with it, and during times of pregnancy of a woman can lactate. And during times of the month can lactate too, especially if those mammary glands are titillated or excited. I know it's rough to hear it and take it, but you think about it, and when you find me wrong, then we'll talk about it. The bulbourethra glands of the male are equal to the larger so-called vestibular glands of the woman. It simply means that amongst the male gland reproductive is a gland called the orchic. How many men know where their orchics are? How many men knew you had an orchic? How many women know that you have 3 glands that you've never been told about, and one of them you've only partially been told about? That's why I list it as a 3rd. Don't leave yet then. The female thyroid gland has 3 lobes. The male thyroid gland has 2 lobes. And the reason why the female thyroid gland has 3 lobes is because she tries to store up thyroxine through iodine storage, and is always usually craving it in a deficient way. The chemical iodine we get here is not the sodium iodine that she needs, and she's always craving iodine. The closest substitute is simply iron. It is not the substitute though. Seaweed and plants like chlorella and chlorophyll-containing water plants give her most of those proficient things. Land plants usually can't make the grades, and most of the women that take chlorophyll will find it's from alfalfa. That's why they're not satisfied physically in their thyroid reproduction. Thyroxine is not rich from land plants, which also have chemicals within them. Hear well something I know no other white man or black man has told anybody in here, and then all you have to do is do the research to see if it is true. The other two female secret glands is one called the epiphyseal, E-P-O-O-P-H-O-R-O-N, the epiphyseal. In good physiological guides and studies of physiognomy, it is between the ovary and the uterus in what is called the mesosphinx. Yes, MESOSAPINX, the mesosphinx. You can look it up in your physiological text, or just go to a med store near a pre-med college, and you don't even have to take it out. Just glance through, look it up, write it down. You can leave the book there. Within the epiphyseal in the mesosphinx is something called the paroophorone, P-A-R-O-O-P-H-O-R-O-N, the paroophorone. It produces seminal fluid and seminal secretions, just like in a male. Those glands in many cases are atrophied, and the eating of salt is one of the things that atrophies them, as it does the thymus gland, which is a gland of youth. Those glands reflect from the biblical cord. That's not what you call it, is it? I call it the biblical cord. Unbiblical is what it's supposed to be. I say that because it is through misteachings of a religion that sought to subjugate women and bring them under church control that the truth of these books and things that talk about it have been squelched and hidden. They are now called apocrypha. When a woman exposed to moonlight at certain days of the month or sunlight at certain days of the month can suffer again even worse menses based again on the amount of meat in her system and the thoughts on her mind. All animals with vertebra follow the moon cycle, and that's why every 28 days, give or take a half day, they suffer the menses. It is the animal portion of woman that is pulling her down. The Godhead or lighter portion of the female is the one that still tries to go back to when she was an angel, an ethereal vehicle, and only took on mortal form to produce mortals on a planet under directions of the Lord God Jehovah. Now she's forgotten where she was, who she was, because the veil of Maya, the electromagnetic field, was placed around this planet, and she's been separated from her higher consciousness. That's why through meditation and prayer, changing of the diet and exercising, not only will the body become stronger and bring out the more higher cycle of the angelic form of woman, but will cause you also to begin to dream in color and understand who you were, because you then lose the reality of the physical body and go into the real illusion of the spiritual self. Is it with me? Mitochondrial DNA is what your allopathic doctors will bring on you and your geneticists will back up, and they really don't understand it, but I will tell you what they will tell you. Mitochondrial DNA has an opponent. It is called nuclear DNA. Nuclear DNA is a mixture of both parents' genes. Nuclear DNA is a mixture of both parents' genes. Mitochondrial DNA is inherited only from the mother and is altered only by mutation, and this may be what led to the original separation of races on our planet and the proliferation of the newborns, the mankinds. Let me repeat that once more to you. It is a very heavy proponent. I'm not being egotistical. You haven't heard this, listen to it and go out and do the research. Two types of DNA that they speak about, mitochondrial DNA and nuclear DNA. Nuclear DNA is a mixture of both parents' genes. Mitochondrial DNA is inherited only from the mother and can be altered by radiation and even thought. It is very unstable DNA molecule. We're told that again the X chromosome belongs to the female and the Y chromosome belongs to the male, and when you get double X and double Ys and things like this, you get anything at all. I will state to you that a woman has the mental ability to change the chromosome pattern of any DNA molecule, or did. Oh woman, if you only knew who you were, then man would know who he is. Since both were taken away from the homeland by which virgins were born, and from the identification in Nubia and in Mesopotamia and amongst the Anasazi in the underground realms of the pyramid where the first earth woman was put on the surface to be tried for creativity. If we understood what went before, we would understand better the dream flashes when we begin to try to understand who we are. So much has been taken away, as I used to understand it, 96 books, and now I understand it from the brother last night, 240 books. But either way, the missing books of what we call the biblical book of the Bible, that if we had it all back as they did at once the library at own, we would understand who we were, when our gods and creators were coming back, and when the universal cosmic logoi would sanction the end to this foolishness on this planet. Let me state that 2000 is the year. The awakening has begun, and now women must worry about cysts, because as our sun puts out more energy, and this summer that's all you're going to hear about, women will begin to produce cysts like mad, and if you eat meat, you're going to produce dermoid cysts and go through all kinds of trauma, especially the lower the phylum of the meat that you ingest. Because the vibrations are low, and the body must get rid of it, and the sun will work on it, and will try and bring it to term, because that's why it thinks you ate the meat. Did you hear me? You didn't hear me. About to wind up, and I know there won't be any questions or comments, will there? Lastly, as we conclude this way out presentation that I don't know anybody is going to present other than me, so I'll stay around so you can ask questions of me, is simply this. Mankind, human, angelic man, and gods will be on this planet this year. Before, just mankind and human shared an innocence and an ignorance, and now they no longer can live with each other in peace. Therefore, as one awakens, one must go to sleep. Cycles reverse. We are in the midst of a dispensational reversal of what is called a dispensation and a sensation. We're leaving the sensory vibrations of the third plane and are going into the fourth dimension once again. Those that change will find the menses will begin to cease, so don't go running to the doctor to stab you, please, and pay him for doing so. But understand that a change in frequency is your blessing, and one of the curses will be that they will not get the money from you by selling all the devices on a monthly basis to supposedly the 5 billion people on our planet that are females. Understand also that if you work with your mother-father image, which is your natural heritage, as the angels that you're supposed to be, many other things will begin to heal themselves if you just go natural, meaning natural herbals. Instead of drills and scalpels, magnets and crystals. Instead of all of the drugs, the vitamins and natural herbals and the trees and the barks. And it's very interesting, if you're keeping your lawns in the summertime now, you have the hardest time trying to stop those daggone weeds from coming up again, and you will spend half of your monthly income either on your mortgage payments, your rent, or keeping your lawns pretty. Those of you who are fortunate enough to even have lawns. have them long anyway because the weeds are coming back. One of the signs of the time is when weeds begin to grow, man is going to suffer because the weeds are your medicine fools. Pick them now, dry them out, get the seeds, and live. It won't cost you a cent. Don't throw them away. When they throw them away, pick them up and don't let them put the dioxides and dioxazines and everything else into them. Get them now while God is blessing you. The manna is coming and you are burning it up and throwing it away. It's for free. Study your basic herbal guides. You'll see them growing in the streets. The Creator has not forgot you, neither has Jehovah. Understand who you are and pick them and store them now so you may live, and at least the women will not have to go through menses in the time of trials. The radiation that the sunflower carries will help you to develop a higher consciousness if you don't let it become poison by going through the wicked master's cultivation system and being resold to you. Grow your own. Understand again that as you develop the higher consciousness, the new life forms born to you will be the gods returning in a form that they will transform the earth. That's why these precious young are being fought over, but not by the nuclear Negroid family, but by the Caucasoid state. And you're giving your children up to the state right and left, not understanding you're giving away your gods. Your goddesses, if you don't understand that God has no plural. God is one. Those who are low in vibration think low in vibration, reproduce low in vibration souls, and will suffer through the pangs of karma. Those who raise their consciousness call forth advanced souls. Their own bodies are quickened and purified in the undertaking. The male also gets healed in the undertaking, and the new soul can teach you until it becomes psychically closed by all the drugs and things that this present false civilization will give to them. The blessings have never stopped. The intelligence of what once was a prosperous people was taken away. But don't feel bad, it was taken away from everything born on this planet. In conclusion, this time, like all times, is a good one if we but know what to do with it. I thank you. Thank you very much. We open it up for questions and answers and statements, and if it goes on for 2 hours, I'm going to call it for hard. Okay, I'll go by the hands that I see, if you don't mind. And do you want them to talk in a mic or something? Okay, do you need one of these mics down there now for that? Pardon? Oh, it's in the back? Okay, do you need one of these?
I need someone who will stand up here on the stage who will pass the mic back and forth. Can I get somebody who will volunteer that for me?
Can you use one mic for them and one mic for
No,
me?
it doesn't work because I don't have it like that right now. Sorry to be a pain, but yeah. Oh, that's still good.
You know who the mic? How you doing?
I'd like to know if you have any solutions as to how we can make the situation better, because you stated at the end of your lecture that you felt that we should be prepared for, what was to come, and that there are ways that we can make it better.
Okay, I tried to share with you already some of these solutions by just again taking time out from a busy day to spend time with self. I would suggest everybody spend 15 minutes a day alone with themselves. first of all, let all those thoughts and problems and bills and love affairs and car payments, everything else, just go all through. Then when you get tired of all of that, you almost go to sleep. Just before you go to sleep, ask a creator if you can believe in one, or ask your higher consciousness or whatever you're trained to do, what's really going on? And let me know. And hold that thought as you drift off and sleep. Your best teachers are already trying to contact you. They're in the etheric world. They're in your own mind, in your own neuron stems. Once you do that, and if you will only program yourself as you go to sleep, wherever you're going to, and I have whole classes on that, you'll get your answer either on awakening, or you might wake up in the middle of the night and have an answer. Okay? There is nothing, no book out here necessary. Buy the books, buy mine. But understand that you're just doing it the lazy way. Work for yourself. Nobody can find the truth until they have decided what truth is. I can't teach you a truth, can't convince you of the truth. You only agree with those things deep inside you that make sense, and you hear them manifested. That's your first course. Secondly, watch nature. Turn off the boob tube, turn off the radio for at least an hour at least every day, and spend some time walking and looking and observing. You might have to walk with somebody because somebody might hit you in the back of the head, you understand? So keep your purse at home and all that kind of stuff. Put on your shoes. But observe. Nature always warns and talks before nature strikes. Man is the only one that never warns you and is hypocritical. Tune in to the other things. You'll be as guided as much as anybody is guided. And the other solutions, again, as I spoke to you before, some of the products we carry will help at this time, while we can still get these products, to bring you to a higher vibration, to help cleanse the body, to help lift the consciousness. Okay? Now, thank you. Be careful going down up there. Sorry to walk all the way up here just to ask a question. Or if you wanted to, she was asking again. I don't think it's really going to be necessary for her to come all the way up the stage.
No, I was going to have her ask from right here.
I think I have a question. I'm not sure because I'm still trying to digest much of the information that I received today. One phenomenon that is disturbing to me is why is it that the Caucasoid is having so much trouble reproducing? Why is it that their numbers are going down and they have resorted, maybe I'm observing it wrong, but they have resorted to other forms of trying to become pregnant or to impregnate their female and to have that female carry to term. I think that's my question. Okay.
And I think I can answer that question. I'm always plugging my tapes in one sense, but in a lecture that I give, Earthquakes, Hurricanes, Prophecies, and You, and also AIDS, what it is, what it isn't, and AIDS, the update, that question is dealt with in detail. In answer to your